I mentioned this about what's going on with Jemele Hill, that she had some things to say on Twitter, calling the president a white supremacist. The president's press secretary, responded, and I don't think Trump had heard anything about this, but I think it was going to be relayed to him. And then Huckabee said this is a fireable offense. I don't know if ESPN is going to do anything about this. They have disciplined other anchors. She was back on the 6 o'clock yesterday, but they disciplined Linda Cohn, I think, before for doing this. You want to get publicity here. And I think what is brought up here is it a double standard that Jemele Hill gets to say what she feels like. And Curt Schilling got fired for saying what he really felt. When Schilling was on the air, this never came up. Jemele Hill, when she does SportsCenter, this doesn't come up. It's a slippery slope because of where ESPN is right now. And is there a political bias there? Is there a political agenda, a hidden agenda? Are you going to do something with Jemele Hill? Can you do something? What if you do something? Al Sharpton said, "We'll boycott ESPN if you fire her here." My approach is that I hope the audience understands. I respect, your opinions, but when it comes into the field of play with sports, we'll try to keep it to that. Sports and entertainment, that's what we do, and we do it well. But, I choose not to do anything Twitter-wise. If my Danettes do something Twitter-wise, that's on them, if that's what they want to do. When we come on the show, we decide if we're going to bring up something or not. I think we can all be in agreement what happened in Charlottesville was abhorrent. It was detestable. I don't think that you can sit there and, pick and choose and say, well, there were good people there. And, overall, we disapproved of what happened there. Now, can we argue with taking down statues? I've been in the southern states where I've seen the statues. Well, it doesn't affect me, but I don't let it affect me. But that's different than somebody who says that is oppression to me or what that represents. My point is, put those statues in a museum. If you choose to go to the museum, fine, you can go see it. But as far as having those statues up, I've never been big on those in the first place. But now we're going to be starting to tear down statues. And was he sort of racist, or did he have slaves? And we're going to get to the point where it's not going to go away. And people who you hold in high regard, or at least you thought you did, now all of a sudden their statues come down. Does Lincoln's statue come down at some point because somebody's going to come out with something? Or George Washington? It's a mess. It really is. I try not to let that bleed into what we do. If Jemele Hill feels that strongly about what she said, fine. As a person on her Twitter account, I have no problem with that. But you as a consumer may, because you can't separate the two. And that's what we were always told at ESPN. We know your people, but we want you to do your job. And when people tune in, they don't see a political agenda. When I worked with Oberman, there was no political agenda, ever. But there was no social media back then. Keith never, ever talked about politics. He never. Now, if we were doing SportsCenter now, he would have a social media account. He would probably have something to say, and we would be called into the office. So I understand the delicate balance there. But I also know when you tune into this show, you're not saying, boy, I want to know what he has to, what he thinks of, North Korea or the wall. Now, if we had a private conversation, great. But I do respect your time and what you expect out of this show. Now, Jemele Hill is not bringing this into SportsCenter. But I think it's really hard to separate what she said in her Twitter account and what she does for a living. People are going to tune in and know where she stands on things. Yeah, Seton.
I think it's interesting that ESPN has really backed themselves into an unwinnable situation with a lot of the decisions that they've made regarding these types of things about what people say on social media versus what they say on air and who they are as people. And there's because of the decisions they've made, it's a lose-lose for them at every pass.
No matter what they do, if they discipline her, there'll be blowback.
Correct.
If they don't, okay.
Correct.
We see where you guys stand politically. They put themselves in the position when you get rid of Schilling. Now, when Schilling says, Hillary should basically be dead, I have a problem with that, obviously. Rush Limbaugh, if you're going to hire him to do what Rush does, then don't fire him for doing what he did. And that's my problem with that with Rush Limbaugh. now with Jemele Hill, I think ESPN's, the spotlight's on him to do something. Will you do something? What will you do? And then how does she react to this? Yeah, because she said, hey, I understand. Let's move on. But I'm not speaking from, a minority with this. And that's what you have to understand with this. Can I separate the two? When I tune into the 6, I'm not thinking about her comments about Donald Trump. But you might. And that's where ESPN has a dilemma.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.